Hello, I'm State Representative Steve Barrar, and I'm here to talk 5 minutes with Steve Miller about veterans courts in Pennsylvania and how to establish them. Steve, welcome to the show, and maybe you can give me a little rundown about, you were here today meeting with Chairman Marsico with the Judiciary Committee about the need to establish a veterans court in Pennsylvania. Can you maybe discuss that with us?
Yes, Steve, thanks for having me, and I appreciate Chairman Marsico's time on the issue as well. You and he have both been big supporters of veterans in Pennsylvania. The Veterans Court in Pennsylvania is an overlay to the existing court system, and essentially it takes veterans who get in trouble with the law, and instead of sending them to prison, it gets them benefits that they've earned through their combat and their service with the VA, the Veterans Administration. Our Supreme Court has already established a program in a few of the counties around the Commonwealth: Philadelphia, Allegheny, Scranton, Bucks County, and Chester County, I believe, are on the way. And it is handled in a manner where if a veteran comes in under some type of a summary offense, they would still be held accountable. They'd go through the judicial process, only instead of being sent into the Commonwealth prison system or whatever type of criminal disposition, if they are eligible, they'd go into a VA treatment program where they'd be evaluated, treated, rehabilitated, and if they stay out of trouble, that would be the end of their involvement in the judicial system.
So your goal is to establish this at the district justice level, so that this would be if a veteran commits some type of a crime, his first run-in kind of would be with the local courts at the district justice level, right? I
think that's the best level for it. It nips it in the bud. The judicial justice level, even if it is a crime that would eventually have the individual go to common pleas, that's where their initial preliminary hearing or arraignment would be. So that's the most common, seems to make the most sense. That's also where the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, who has oversight over the Pennsylvania court system, has it set up at this time. Mm-hmm. That's up to them, but I think that's a good place for it.
Any idea what you're seeing? I know our veterans coming home since 9/11 have been under a lot of stress, a lot different than some of the other conflicts we were involved in. What type of issues are you dealing with the most, do you think?
They have been, and you bring up an important point where there has been a shift. What I see, and where I see it, by the way, is as you know, the Pennsylvania Veterans Museum, where we are both on the board, and the law clinic that I run out of there. I see a lot of cases where young kids are coming back from having spent a lot of time in Iraq and Afghanistan in their formative years, and have learned their coping skills there, and those behaviors and those skills don't apply here. And had they walked into a VA treatment center with the post-traumatic stress that they're suffering from, or the other conditions that have been caused by that service, had they walked into a VA center, they'd have gotten evaluated, they've gotten treated, and they'd have gotten handled that way. Unfortunately, they walked into a different situation, which has brought them in front of a court or to the attention of law enforcement. And in most cases, it starts out with post-traumatic stress, which can be difficult to diagnose, and then eventually often leads into substance abuse and those kind of destructive behaviors. And you mentioned the difference, I'd say about pre-9/11 era, so pre-Iraq and Afghanistan, you'd really see them enter the justice system, and the Department of Justice has statistics to back this up, with substance abuse problems as well as in mental health. We're seeing them now more with, fortunately, being able to catch them earlier, where they haven't gotten into the substance abuse and the more destructive behaviors that make it much more difficult to rehabilitate them. We see them now early enough on that there's certainly hope to get them into these federally funded programs instead of our Commonwealth funded prison system and help them out.
So the goal here is really, and I'm sure you've read the papers, our budget's under a lot of strain. The cost of prison is going up every year. The goal here is to help our veterans get the treatment they need before we incarcerate them, and I think that's the first step. And I think there's definitely a huge savings here to the taxpayers, because I know Congressman Sestek had a program where he went into the prisons and talked to a lot of the convicted felons that were in there, and a lot of us realize that if we can catch these guys early and get them the treatment they need, they won't end up in the prison system. So I love the idea. I think Chairman Marsico did. Looking at some of the cost is There's a small amount of cost because we're going to continue to use the district justice system that's in place today, right?
Right. And absolutely, everybody loves supporting veterans because we know it's the right thing to do, and they've done so much for us. But there's a cost associated, and it's not a good time to incur extra costs. That's actually one of the strengths of this program, is that by and large, it's already paid for. We're talking about an overlay to an existing judicial structure, and the elements of it are you have a district judge or a judge at some level whom you appoint to hear all the veterans cases in that county or that area, whatever you want to do. The VA, the Veterans Administration, is already on board with it. They have trained individuals who are trained to be in that courtroom, have real-time access to veterans' records to verify that the veteran is who he says he is and eligible for evaluation and treatment. And you have a network of veteran volunteers who then help mentor that individual. These are all things that are in place, are all already paid for, and even the training for the judges. Since a lot of them do involve substance abuse or at-risk behavior for substance abuse, the judges who are already trained to do our drug court system, which is an up-and-running system, can also get veterans court training from that same organization who trains them for drug courses. So the funding there's really no additional funding, not much additional funding that's required. And there's a bill in both the House and Senate at the federal level called the SERVE Act, which would provide additional 75% of the funding of any state court program, which is part of why I believe that in addition to the judiciary's establishment of the program, it would be appropriate for the legislature to back it up with legislation, make it uniform, make it supported, provide an avenue to get federal and any other funding available. And also, because I know yourself being a veteran, many of the legislators being veterans and being big fans of our veterans, it just puts your money where your mouth is a little bit as the legislature.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention, and maybe just real quick you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a great background in helping veterans, but you're also well, I'll let you tell the folks out there about yourself a little bit.
Thanks, Steve. I am living in the house I grew up in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, with my wife and our 2 young children who are going through the Pennsylvania school system. We were moved around for about 10 years while I was flying in the Navy. Got out, took a part-time job flying in the Air National Guard, where I just got back from Iraq last summer, flying F-16s out of Balad. Heavily involved in the veterans issues through the Veterans Museum, where we were both involved, and the Veterans Law Clinic there. And do a lot of veterans advocacy, even in the employment law area. I'm a private practice attorney as well, as you know. The employment law area, where our veterans coming back as guardsmen and reservists are having to integrate into their civilian employment. And
that's a great thing that you've taken this kind of the bull by the horns here, have come up here pushing for the legislation, kind of hoping that Nick Miccarelli will, take this legislation and run with it and help us. And I thank you for taking the time to come out here today.
Thank you,
sir. It means
sir.
a lot to have you. And thanks for watching, and tune in for the next show. Thank you.